vice presidents and such individuals. As you know, sometimes we get it all wrong. We say that, for instance, I will be referred to as the immediate past Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As for the person before me, who would be His Excellency Namadi Sambo, he would be referred to as the former Vice President of Nigeria. All those before us will be referred to as the one-time Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who is seated here, is the one-time. I welcome you, sir, and also to say what a pleasure to see you, and also to know that you're healthy and well and doing so wonderfully year after year. I'm honored to welcome you all to the launch of the book, According to the President, by Malam Garba Shehu, former Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Communication. We are especially honored to have with us today General Yakubu Gowon, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who at age 90 still looks like he could still win a 100-meter dash. I'm aware, sir, that you were to go abroad before you got this invitation, but you very graciously postponed that trip to be here to celebrate with our friend and brother, Malam Garba Shehu. Garba Shehu has written a very important book, According to the President, a presidential spokesman's experience. And the book is important, not just because it details his eyewitness accounts of some of the most history-worthy moments in our national annals. And he crisscrosses two different administrations. But not just that. I think more importantly, he has been true to his heart and to his calling as a teacher. Many may not know that Malam Garba, while he was editor of the Triumph newspaper in Kano, was also doing something close to his heart, teaching journalism, aspects of journalism at his alma mater, the Bayero University. So in writing this book, he says categorically that he set out to write not an autobiography, but a textbook for those who will in the future be media advisors and practitioners in the prestigious but often difficult, sometimes treacherous terrain of politics and governance at the highest levels. By writing a textbook based on his experiences, both good and bad, he spares the wise who will follow him the burdens of learning by experience. The popular adage, experience is the best teacher, is, as you know, only a half-truth. It is actually the shortened form of a Welsh proverb. Experience is the best teacher for a fool. The wise learn from history. History is a kinder and gentler teacher than experience. So he gives a blow-by-blow account of the inside story and several inside stories, including the conflict that developed between Vice President Abubakar Atiku and President Olusegun Obasanjo. And I'm not going to go into any of that. I'm not reviewing the book, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot to be said today about all of that. And how, what he says, how he, as a media person for Vice President Atiku, in navigating that debacle, he lost his job. And it tells the story of how one evening he got a call from NTA and was told, "We are announcing your resignation tonight." And he remonstrated that he had not resigned. The voice said, "Well, we have your letter of resignation here." And yes, his resignation was announced that evening. The job of the Vice President, and just reflecting a bit on the conflict between the Vice President and the President, I think that the only other Vice President who is here may agree with me that the job of the Vice President is possibly the most difficult in the world. It was His Excellency Umar Ganduje, former chairman of the APC, in his famous work, Deputizing, who humorously describes the conundrum that deputies face. And he once said to me, he said, when you're a deputy or vice, you're in a difficult position. And then he would pause, like a great storyteller that he is, and then say, every action you take is likely to be misinterpreted, not necessarily by your boss, but by the numerous people around him. He says, if you humbly walk behind your boss, they will say, look at him. He's not cooperating with his boss. If you walk by his side, they will say, ha, see this man. He thinks he's equal to the boss. And if you walk in front of him, they will say, he thinks he's better than the boss. The account of Garba Shehu about all of the events surrounding that particular conflict, I'm sure you will find incredibly interesting reading. But the bulk of the book is about his stewardship as presidential spokesman, co-presidential spokesman of President Muhammadu Buhari. And that is the bulk of the book. As we've heard, and we've already heard from his, at the time, the special advisor and spokesman to the president, Pastor Femi Adesina. They worked together very closely. And you would find in the book that his depiction of President Muhammadu Buhari and his tenure comes from a different perspective. And I must say, it sheds a completely different light on the way that he related to President Muhammadu Buhari. I'm not going to spend any time, as I said, trying to analyze that or say anything about it, only to say, as Femi Adesina has said, that President Buhari, there will be several more books written about him, several. We have read Working with Buhari. We will soon see Laughing with Buhari. And today we're seeing According to Buhari. I know that this particular occasion is one where we celebrate him and where we will also celebrate his tenure. Garba Shehu's book, I must say, is a good analysis of those times. It's a fair and objective analysis of those times. And he spares very little in terms of detail and in terms of analysis. So I welcome you all to this occasion, and I trust that you will have a very pleasant time, not just listening to experiences, but also appreciating an era of which much still will be written. Thank you very much.
On our principal and former president of the country, Muhammadu Buhari, a number of books have been written on him. Like the MC said, I have written. When we were in government, some people wrote, and now my colleague in the media office of the president, Garba Shehu, has written one. Why this rush of books? We have not even seen anything, because many, many more will come. Books should be written because human memory can be short. Therefore, a number of things need to be documented and must be documented. That is why it is needful to write books, particularly on a personality like President Buhari, who has served the country honestly and selflessly. It is said that Abraham Lincoln is the most documented American president. That as of today, there are between 15,000 and 16,000 books written on Abraham Lincoln. One president. One president. And it is good to have things like that because many generations of Americans to come will have things to read about Abraham Lincoln. Don't be surprised if in the years and the decades and epochs to come, we have many more books on President Buhari because he is like an elephant. When you touch an elephant, you account for that part of the animal you have touched. If you touch the trunk, your account is going to be different from that of the man who touched the body. And if another man touches the tail, his account will be different from that of the man who touched the body. So, many more books will come about President Buhari. He had two spokespersons, myself and Malam Garba. If you look at our books, our two books, you'll find that they are in different directions. Mine was experience working with the man. And Malam has also written in another direction. Many other books in different other directions will still come. So we are here today to launch this book by Malam Garba Shehu, and I would like to thank everyone that is here. And I will just say, please, let's write on about a man who is iconic, about a man who is legendary, and about a man whose image looms large. Thank you very much for coming.
I am representing Mr. President, who would have loved to be here because of his respect for the former President Muhammadu Buhari. But as you all know, he is in faraway Brazil on official assignment. He asked me to represent him, so please let me proceed with his address. I am deeply honored to be here today as the special guest of honor at the formal presentation of this thought-provoking and important book, according to the President, Lessons from a Presidential Spokesman's Experience, authored by a seasoned journalist, media strategist, and former presidential spokesman, Malam Garba Shehu. Let me begin by congratulating the author for this important contribution to Nigeria's democratic literature and public discourse. This event is not merely a celebration of a book. It is a significant national moment, an opportunity to reflect on the leadership journey my predecessor and one of Nigeria's most consequential leaders, former President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, whose time in office shaped the direction of our country in profound ways. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the book we are gathered to launch today is a compelling and sincere documentation of leadership from within. Through the eyes and experiences of a spokesman who worked at the very heart of power, we are offered a unique, unfiltered, and well-considered insights into the decisions, challenges, and accomplishments that define President Buhari's tenure from 2015 to 2023. From President Muhammadu Buhari, former President Muhammadu Buhari is a man whose leadership stood on the pillars of integrity, accountability, prudence, as well as patriotism. Under his stewardship, Nigeria witnessed a decisive push to confront insecurity, a serious commitment to infrastructure renewal, a renewed focus on self-reliance, and a clear effort to sanitize the public sector. These themes resonate strongly in this book and must be appreciated in their full historic dimensions. From the restoration of fiscal discipline to the diversification of the economy, from the development of our critical national infrastructure to the transformation of our rail and road networks, and from the expansion of social investment programs to the repositioning of the agricultural sector, President Buhari's era reflected an earnest attempt to reposition Nigeria to future resilience. In foreign policy, he was deliberate, calculated, and consistent. Nigeria's voice remained steady and respected within the African Union and the international community. Our engagements with global partners were guided by a principled foreign policy doctrine that upheld national interest, regional stability, and non-alignment. At this juncture, it is also worth commending President Buhari's humility and restraint in the exercise of presidential power, hallmarks of democratic maturity. In the face of provocation, he remained calm. In moments of uncertainty, he held steady. His was a presidency of discipline and quiet strength. Malam Garba Shehu's account provides a critical behind-the-scenes perspective. The book also serves as a repository of wisdom for public communicators, policymakers, scholars, historians, and Nigerians at large. It offers key lessons on leadership communication, governance under pressure, and the intersection between power and public perception. As a nation, we must never get tired of documenting our journey. If we must move forward purposefully, we must learn from the past with honesty. Books like these play a vital role in that learning process. They preserve memory, illuminate truth, and sharpen our collective understanding of nationhood. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, nation building is a relay. The efforts of one administration lay the foundation for the next. In this regard, I acknowledge the efforts of my predecessor, President Buhari, and assure all Nigerians that the reform-oriented path he initiated will be considered consolidated and strengthened under this administration. Our renewed hope agenda is inspired by the desire to build a resilient, just, and inclusive Nigeria, a nation that delivers dividends of democracy to all its citizens. Let me once again commend Malam Garba Shehu, whose mentor happens to be the vice chairman of this occasion, the Duke, who happens to be my in-law. So, let me once again commend Malam Garba Shehu for this work of deep insight and historical relevance. I congratulate the organizing committee of this book's public presentation and all those who supported its production. As we unveil this book, may it serve as a mirror to the past, a compass for the present, and a beacon for the future. Let us continue to invest in honest storytelling, objective assessments, and constructive national dialogue. I thank you all for your kind attention. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you all.
Churchill, at the end of World War II, Prime Minister of Britain, who was asked Prime Minister, how do you think, or do you think that history will be kind to you? And he said, yes, history will be kind to me because I intend to write it. And he wrote 11 volumes, those of you who remember, on the history of Second World War. So we're not going to have 11 volumes about Buhari's administration, but we might get close to it. But I know that whether we write it or not, history will be kind to that administration, because he was a unique man, a unique leader, led by example, not ostentatious, very stern. And he always, once you give somebody a responsibility, allows you to do your job. But of course, unfortunately, some people in whom he places confidence abuse it. I'm not going to go into detail, but they know themselves. Yeah, they abuse it. But nonetheless, he's a man that will take responsibility. And he says, even in private to me, to say, well, I appointed them. Okay, and sometimes I have to be tolerant of some inefficiencies, some backroom deals, but ultimately it's my name, Buhari. But I feel sure that in totality, we'll get to appreciate the man. But a particularly insightful contribution of this volume lies in his rigorous analysis of the greatest challenge that President Buhari faced, which Madam Shehu identified as, quote, the perception challenge and the tyranny of high expectation. And this perception challenge is not small. President Buhari himself often reminds, when I'm with him, that, you know, this is your America. He refers to them as my America because I've spent an enormous amount of time in the US as a student, teacher, and worker. He said, can you imagine that I was invited by President Trump at that time, head of state of Nigeria, invited by the president. We sat down in front of the camera. He said, Mr. President, why are you killing Christians in your country? Well, because the perception from the Christian right that was given to him was that this was an Islamic fundamentalist who is bent on just killing Christians in his country. So, perception challenge. And the tyranny of high expectations, which is that Buhari has come, he must solve all problems, both domestic and foreign. And I must say that this is also something that we have to reflect on as Nigerians. We always think that we have a president who should resolve all problems. But he can't. Every president leads, sets example, has to be accountable, but the responsibility or the guarantee of success belongs not just to the president, but to those who assist him, those who are sometimes imposed on him, and the rest of the people. That's why security, with due respect to General Burta is here and all the other generals, national security is not the responsibility of the president and commander-in-chief alone. I think it was the famous General Colin Powell who said, or it's Rumsfeld, Secretary of Defense, he said, you don't fight a war with the army you wish. You fight a war with the army that you have. So in many ways, a country deserves the kind of president they get because it's a reflection of the country. However, there are times when a country gets a president that is better than what they deserve, or sometimes worse. And the process of selecting the president, I'm using this podium and this book to me, we must look into political parties in Nigeria, how presidential candidates, gubernatorial candidates are selected, by whom, and in what process, because if garbage in, garbage out. But people feel, well, it's not our business. We are not politicians. I'm not a politician myself, student political science. But the country's business is our business, collective business. Security is our collective business. But yes, we hold the leader responsible has to take responsibility as a leader. And no leader is there that he doesn't want. Because if you don't want, you can always leave. So by accepting, then that's a responsibility for people to put their lives in your hands. And I believe to the best of his ability, Buhari did his best with what he had. Now, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. A particularly insightful contribution of this volume lies in the fact that we didn't have at the beginning what we call strategic communication or strategic approach in addressing criticism in the right spirit and often concrete communication solution for dealing with scenarios. Many people think that being a spokesman is just to abuse everybody or tit for tat. It's not it. It's communication to get the president's policies understood and, if possible, accepted by the generality of the people. That's the role. And therefore, you have to take a strategic approach to it. Duke, I'm not speaking for you. You know, I'm just a simple man from Ilorin. But that's what strategic communication is about, not abusing, you know. Because how can you be abusing people? And, you know, you will explain what you are trying to do, what are the constraints, and what efforts you are making, and therefore how the president deserves the support which he needs. So, this dimension of strategic communication offers invaluable lessons for every public servant and aspiring leader on navigating the complexities of public opinion in a vibrant democracy, particularly in an era contending with misinformation and the inherent risk of spinning stories. Yeah. And also, I sympathize because Garba Shehu, Femi Adesina, they are the spokesmen, but they are the designated spokesmen. There are so many people who speak for the president. Boss Mustapha speaks for the president. Gambari sometimes speaks for the president. You know, chairman of the party speaks for the president. Sometimes traditional rulers speak for the president. Some unofficial advisors, these mysterious people that never come to the public front, you know, but Nigerians know them and go to them. They speak for the president. So how do you, the designated spokesman, coordinate all of this in serving the president? But beyond the rich narrative of the two presidencies that Madam Garba Shehu served, the book serves as an invaluable pedagogical instrument for practitioners. It delves into the crucial importance of record keeping, the cultivation of robust interpersonal relationship, and explicates the immense ethical power wielded by journalists in their decisions to print or not to print. It highlights the advent of strategic communication in the villa and offers a comprehensive blueprint for ethical leadership development, inspiring the future generation to serve with distinction. I feel sure, therefore, Excellencies and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that this book will undoubtedly serve as a critical reference for future administrations striving for enhanced accountability and efficiency. So, there are many reasons to commend this book. There are many reasons why you should buy this book. There are many reasons why you should read this book. But what seems to me one of the best reasons is that the author is committed to mentorship. You know, mentorship. Yeah. There was a time in this country when the leaders mentored people. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa mentored Shehu Shagari and others. Ahmadu Bello mentored several people. You know, I'm also a beneficiary of the kind of mentoring that Ahmadu Bello did by suggesting that there are young northerners that should be sent to King's College. Why is it? It's a federal government secondary school, the only federal government boys secondary school. No northerners there. Go there. You know, grow there. Go there and grow there. Send people like Baba Gana Kingbe and not influence. They are being sent to UK as undergraduate, Sussex. I don't know why he went to Sussex, by the way, when there was the London School of Economics, there were Oxford and Cambridge. But that's a story for another time. But you see, they groomed people, they mentored people, and where we are today. So where are who have people mentored that followed those great leaders of our country? So this gentleman, Garba Shehu, is devoted to mentoring at least a section of the Nigerian population. It's always dangerous when you give the microphone to a professor of international relations and a diplomat. He knows when to start, but to stop is a problem. But I will have to stop. But I did better than the foreign minister of India, Menon, who at a Security Council meeting on Kashmir, he spoke for 5 hours to the Security Council and broke down. And people say, where's the doctor in the house? They said, there's no doctor in the house. Somebody said, no. Say, get the microphone. So they put the microphone under his nose, and he woke up and continued.
As Buhari's agent, I had been sent a number of times to Bola Ahmed Tinubu to find explanations, to find support for some of our communication issues. Because then, and I believe up to today, President Tinubu has this country's biggest media assets, and he has never failed to come to our aid. So, and it is not by coincidence that he chose Senator George Akume to represent him. And by the way, I hope that the former governor of Benue, when he reads the book, he will not sue me. I hope he will like the picture of a film that I have in that book. But Senator Akume was, if you will recall, actually I was one of the campaign managers. His campaign managers when he wanted to be Senate President in 2015. And I also want to say, I want to skip His Excellency Vice President Atiku Abubakar, because I'll come back to him. His Excellency Vice President Oshibanjo, the intellectual powerhouse. And by coincidence, he has an equally intelligent wife, Her Excellency Dolapo. And I used to think that if Professor Oshibanjo wasn't a professor of law, he wasn't into the calling of religion, he and his wife would have been fantastic nuclear engineers. And they would have given this country a very early time, a very early nuclear bomb. Would have passed that stage a long time ago. But he led us, and we learned so much from him. And I want to say something I think that is being skipped in the order of protocol. His Excellency Babagana Kingibe is also a Vice President of Nigeria. By the virtue of the recognition by President Muhammadu Buhari of the June 12 election as having produced a president for Nigeria and a vice president. So both himself and Chief MKO Abdullah are deserving of all the honor that is due to former presidents and vice presidents. Let me go to the book. Why did I write it? And again, I hope I'm not going to be accused of taking from Professor Oshibanjo's calling. Muslims are encouraged to read widely. The Lord God in the Bible wanted to send someone. In Bible, Isaiah 6:8, he said, "Whom shall I send?" And the journalist stepped forward and said, "Here I am, send me." Not knowing what lied ahead. Some of us who chose journalism as a profession, we didn't know that it was a bed with bombs beneath it. This is illustrated by one small story that I will tell. A gentleman and his wife took their 7-year-old child to a shop. As they were going around, mother saw 2 sweaters which she liked for this 7-year-old. Apparently, there was no money to pay for this. So, noticing that she was not being looked at, she picked 2 and tucked them in her bag. Her husband saw her, but shopkeeper didn't see. So they went home. Mommy was in the kitchen preparing food. And so the father looked at this little child and said to him, "Your mother is a thief." So the little boy got so enraged and dashed into the kitchen and was shouting at mother, "You are a thief. Why did you steal sweaters? I will not use them. You must take them back." So she took the sweaters from home and went out, back to the shop, or maybe she just dumped them somewhere else and came back. In growing up to his adulthood, this little boy said he hated his father, not his mother, for telling him that his mother was a thief. As journalists, we get into a lot of trouble, not because it's our own issue, but because we speak for some others. And that's why I'm coming to His Excellency, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Because this story, and I hope he will like also the part that I'm going to say about him in the book, the disclosures that I have made, because he served in a government that wanted to destroy his political future, wanted to destroy his family, wanted to destroy his business. And because at some point they couldn't reach him, it was those of us, the lesser beings, who were serving him that were being hounded. A mention was made about my sack on television. What followed was even bigger. Frequent arrests, detention in DSS cells, and eventually even being dumped in Kuje prison. And I wish Justice Gumi was here, the one who discharged and acquitted me. So one of the lessons we want journalists to take from this experience is journalism is enormous in terms of the power that you yield, deciding which story to use, which story not to use. You can destroy people, you can build them. And this book, many years back, Justice Gumi he got into trouble. He was the chief judge of Abuja, FCT High Court, and there was a big fight against him. And they got him, they almost got him, those people who are trying to chase him out. And some of my friends said, there's a gentleman who's a good judge, and they want to destroy him, help him. And I'm glad that Bayo Onanuga is seated here. His magazine, The News, did a cover story. I got Bayo to understand what was happening, and they ran a cover story on Justice Gumi and how he defended his own position. When all of these things were going on, I had forgotten completely. I was being hounded, I was prosecuted, and I was, before Justice Gumi, he was trying me. Gumi could have jailed me. I don't know. I'm not saying that he compromised justice, because the merit of my case was defended adequately. Three SANs in Gige, Akintola, Riki Tarfa, they were all sponsored by the former vice president. the goodness of my case was not in doubt. But as a human being, had I refused to help Justice Gumi, had I joined others to antagonize him, and at the end of it, in fact, Justice Gumi sent a gift to me. And I said, no, not for me. This is the tradition we have carried for Barrio College, of which you are also a product. I will not take any gift. You can maybe the small boys over there who helped you. And that was. So I'm saying that we're trying to bring learning to young people so that they can take examples from, and it is not even inside the government. You had situations where you feel you are in the same political party, the same government, you are sailing in the same direction, and then somebody who should know gives you misleading information. As a journalist, you are taught to not to lower your guard, check and cross-check everything that they give you. But this man, he's a senior person in your government, you are working with them. What did he stand to gain by misleading you? So these things, and for the former President Muhammadu Buhari, we were with him for 8 years old. I hope we're able to bring him much closer to Nigeria so that they will understand him, including, as the Vice President said, the things that he eats, the clothes that he wears. Why would he reject a diamond wristwatch? All of these things, people will learn, from them. And to talk about, and the book also addressing a lot of the things that Boss Mustafa has said that were authoritatively collected and presented in a very summary form. So Muhammadu Buhari has done his part, and the legacy must be preserved. This is a country that forgets too often. We are bedeviled by amnesia. The moment you go, they forget about you and they move on. So we must continue to preserve the legacy and keep the records of our former leaders. I think I will not say much. I'm supposed to introduce. So the book is intended to achieve two major objectives. It's a learning document for younger people who are learning journalism and public relations in schools, and two, to project the legacies of President Muhammadu Buhari. Before I take my seat, I know that I will not be back to say my vote of thanks. I would like to thank everyone who has come here, and in particular, cite the two younger brothers of Mrs. Buhari who also have not been recognized, Mahmoud and Ahmed. And Lord Garba actually was my roommate and classmate in Barrio College. And I'm happy that he's good. They said he brought a bullion band here. I'm glad that I had this. And Femi Adesina also, I must mention him because he's just a special kind of person. And Governor Fahimi is in this room. When they first appointed us, and it's in the book, he called us to his suite in Hilton and said, "You two, you must not fight." I said, "Me and Femi, we won't fight." He kept on wanting to, how would you work as spokespersons, two of you, and you don't fight?
Actually inclined, Garba Shehu. It is my honor so to do for the benefit of Nigerians and even beyond. God bless you all.